cup and saucer glowed with a multicolored luminescence, the glass adorned with thickly painted gold swirls and flowers. Mesmerized by the way the colors seemed to change at different angles, Lucy knelt on the floor, tilting her head from one side to the other. Mrs. Geisler stood in the doorway, giving a small laugh that sounded like the crackle of ice cubes when you poured water over them. "That is art glass," she said, "made in Czechoslovakia. It's been in my family for 100 years. "How did they put the rainbows in it?" Lucy asked in a hushed voice. "They dissolve metal and color into melted glass." Lucy was astonished by the revelation. "How do you melt glass?" But Mrs. Geisler was tired of talking. "Children ask too many questions," she said, and went back to the kitchen. Soon, Lucy had learned the word for what was wrong with her 5-year-old sister: meningitis. It meant that Alice would come back very weak and tired, and Lucy must be a good girl and help take care of her, and not make messes. It also meant that Lucy must not argue with Alice or upset her in any way. "Not now," was the phrase Lucy's parents told her most often. The long, quiet summer had been a grim departure from the usual routine of playdates and camps and ramshackle lemonade stands. Alice's illness had turned her into the center of mass around which the rest of the family moved in anxious orbits like unstable planets. In the weeks after her return from the hospital, piles of new toys and books accumulated in her room. She was allowed to run around the table at mealtimes, and she was never required to say please or thank you. Alice was never satisfied with eating the biggest piece of cake or staying up later than other children. There was no such thing as too much for a girl who already had too much. The Marinns lived in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle, originally populated by Scandinavians who had worked in salmon, fishing, and canning industries. Although the proportion of Scandinavians had diminished as Ballard had grown and developed, abundant signs of the neighborhood's heritage still lingered. Lucy's mother cooked with recipes that had been passed down from her Scandinavian ancestors. Gravlax, cold-cured salmon flavored with salt, sugar, and dill, pork roast rolled with gingered prunes in the center, or crumb cake, cardamom cookies rolled into perfect cones on the handles of wooden spoons. Lucy loved to help her mother in the kitchen, especially because Alice wasn't interested in cooking and never intruded. As the summer thinned into a brisk autumn and school started, the situation at home showed no signs of changing. Alice was well again, and yet the family still seemed to operate on the principles of Alice's illness. Don't upset her, let her have whatever she wants. When Lucy complained, however, her mother snapped at her in a way she never had before. "Shame on you for being jealous! Your sister almost died. She was in terrible pain. You are very, very lucky not to have gone through what she did." Guilt radiated through Lucy for days afterward, renewing itself in cycles like a persistent fever. Until her mother had spoken so sharply, Lucy had not been able to identify the nagging feeling that had drawn her insides as tight as violin strings. But it was jealousy. Although she didn't know how to get rid of the feeling, she knew that she must never say a word about it. In the meantime, all Lucy could do was wait for things to go back to the way they had been. But they never did. And even though her mother said she loved both her daughters equally but in different ways, Lucy thought the way she loved Alice seemed like more. Lucy adored her mother, who always came up with interesting rainy day activities and never minded if Lucy wanted to play dress-up with the high-heeled shoes in her closet. Her mother's playful affection, however, seemed folded around some mysterious sadness. Now and then, Lucy would enter a room to find her staring vacantly at some fixed spot on the wall, a lost look on her face. Early some mornings, Lucy would tiptoe to her parents' room and climb into her mother's side of the bed, and they would snuggle until the chill of Lucy's bare feet had dissolved beneath the warm covers. It annoyed her father when he realized that Lucy was in bed with them, and he would grumble that she should go back to her own room. "In a little while," her mother would murmur, her arms wrapped securely around Lucy. "I like to start the day this way." And Lucy would burrow against her more tightly. There were repercussions, however, when Lucy failed to please her. If a note was sent home...